Okay. I was laying awake at sort of 5:30 this morning trying to think of an easy way to teach you guys color mixing, and trying to make up like an anagram for do this step, then this step, then this step. The only thing that really came to me was VHS. Yeah, which is just value, hue, saturation. If you remember last time, I broke color up into its three aspects: hue, value, and saturation or chroma. But I think we'll just keep calling it saturation. So hue is where the color is on the color wheel, like is it a yellow or is it a blue or is it a red? Value is how dark or light it is, like if you're looking at this in terms of black and white, this would be a very high value and this would be a very low value. So that's the darkness or lightness.
So dark is low.
Yep. Saturation is the degree of, or the amount of grey that's in a colour. So this grey here is totally unsaturated, but all these colours here are fully saturated. Now when I start to mix colours together, it naturally lowers the saturation of the colour. And if I mix three colours together, it really starts to add more and more grey into the colour. Okay, so there's the three components of colour, is VHS, value, hue, saturation. You know VHS tapes, eh? Yep. We're of that era, so that's a really good way to think about colour, because when you're starting to worry, like, is this the right blue, you can think, there's so many ways you can think about colour, but if you can break it down into VHS, it becomes a much simpler problem. You say, well, is it the right value compared to this blue here next to it? And it's always a comparison with colour. It's always the relationship that is the question. Because this blue by itself might be perfect for some other situation, but it might be wrong for here. It's just the relationship of everything around it that is in question while we're painting. So you could say, is the value correct, or is the hue correct? Is it blue enough, or should it be more green? That would be a question of hue. Or you could say, is the saturation high enough or low enough? So is that question is the color pure enough, or does it need to be more grey to fit in with its neighbours? Okay, so if you can think about colour in terms of VHS, then you're well on your way to understanding it and controlling it. What I missed out doing last time was really the process of matching a colour, so I wanted to take you guys through it quickly. So if I want to match it's hard because this is cylindrical, better to turn it that way and spill coffee on the floor. If I want to match that colour, it's going to look different to everybody here, but the first thing to do is to look for the tube colour that you have on your palette that is closest to that. So I guess it's yellow, and that's where you start. Okay. Now if it was a green cup, obviously I'd be mixing yellow and blue, and the more colours you have on your palette to start with, obviously the more options you have. So I might have a warmer yellow or yellow ochre that I might want to use instead of that yellow. So with a reduced palette, your options are limited. I might not be able to match exactly that colour, but I can get close enough. So So the first question is the hue. What hue is it? And it's not blue, it's not red, it's definitely yellow. And And then I look a little bit closer at that hue, where it is on the colour wheel, and I think, well, is it a yellow that's leaning towards blue, or is it a yellow that's leaning towards red? Is it getting cooler, or is it getting warmer? What do you think? Yeah, warmer. That's a consensus. So I know I don't have to add much to change it, so I grab a little speck and I add that in. If I were to grab a big blob, then in the end I'd end up using all this paint, and you know how that goes. So little by little I get there, and as you get more practiced at that, you'll know just how much is required to change that colour.
I wouldn't have said you could do it with that yellow. So we needed the other yellow.
Right. So that's...
No, but I mean, it's still possible.
I mean, it depends what light you're viewing that in, but that is pretty close, isn't it? Okay. Now, if I was trying to mix maybe in the shadow underneath where it's darker and it's grayer, can anybody tell me how I would make this colour darker and grayer?
I don't know, would you mix all three and get your grey tone, or would you just have to try a little bit of blue?
Well,
the blue kind of is green.
if I add blue, it will make it greenish. Okay? Maybe it is greenish. I really have to look at the whole thing in terms of relationship. So I would have this as maybe the top of the cup, right? Paint that in. And then I'm looking for the underneath, so the shadow, right? Purple is the opposite, is the complement of yellow. So my first thought is to add purple to make it darker and make it grayer. Okay? Depends on the circumstance, but that's a good basis to start from. So that just means adding both, because you'll see if I add blue first, it's going to go green pretty quick. And then if I add a little bit of red, it's going to push it back the other way. So you see what it's doing is, first blue is drags it around that way, bends it around the colour wheel, and the red pulls it back the other way. But adding the same amount of both, because they're both pretty much the same value, keeps it pretty much in the middle, but it just lowers the chroma. It's adding more grey into it. Okay, and that's probably a little bit more red than blue. So I'll maybe add a little bit more. And so it's a very small difference. I'll just put it in there. Okay, let's say I wanted to make a bigger change. Just add more of those dark colours. So as I add more dark colours, I'm not really changing the hue. The hue is still, like if we had a colour wheel here, the hue would just be, and it was black or dark grey in the middle, the hue would be staying on yellow, but it's coming toward the centre. So the hue's staying the same pretty much. The value is changing, it's getting a lower value, and the saturation is changing, it's getting more grey in it, so it's getting lower saturation. Okay. Okay. Now, if I wanted to, this is a mistake somebody might make. Might think, oh, I want to get back to the light areas here, so I'll just add some white into that. Anybody think they might make that mistake? Yeah. Oh, look what happened. Yeah, it's actually, you know, it's a beautiful colour, but it doesn't have much relation to what I'm trying to mix here.
So you start from scratch then?
Yeah, so I would definitely, if I've used this brush to start from my lights and move down into my darks like I did, I would definitely clean this brush really well if I wanted to get back to the lights or use a whole new brush. Yep. Because the surest way to lower the chroma or to muddy your colours is to mix all of this junk in with a purer colour there. Okay, any questions on that? So what's the 3 letters? VHS, which means? Okay, cool. We're learning stuff. Me too.